Hello and welcome to Tech for Non-Techies, the only podcast that demystifies the fast-growing technology sector. I'm your host, Sophia Matveyeva, Chicago-based MBA and tech entrepreneur. My aim here is to give you the skills, knowledge and confidence to find opportunities in the tech sector, whether that's through founding a company, getting a dream job, or bringing a fresh perspective to your work.
Hello, smart people. How are you today? Last night, I was at a crypto event in central London. There was a soiree organized by one of the largest crypto investors in the world, and the attendees were a good mix of people from tech backgrounds and people who came in from traditional banking. And it's interesting to see how quickly this space is developing. So just a couple of years ago, I was at a party in New York hosted by a crypto company ran by a friend of mine. And as much as I admired that friend, who is a very smart AI developer from Stanford, the people at this New York party were really weird. I mean, really weird. They were proper crypto converts. Like, I remember there was a guy in a Hawaiian shirt and he had this gold medallion of the Bitcoin symbol placed proudly on his hairy chest. I honestly felt like I was at some sort of cult meeting where any questioning of the sanctity of Bitcoin was taken as heresy. Yesterday was an entirely different story because in this short amount of time, crypto has become, I wouldn't say mainstream, but it is getting there. So for example, JP Morgan's wealth management clients can now trade Bitcoin and other crypto funds. So basically, this is not an episode about crypto. I just want you to know that it is an interesting space. It is growing quickly, and we will cover some basic concepts of blockchain and crypto, and we'll also meet people at Tech for Non-Techies who can talk to us about what crypto and blockchain actually are in a coherent and non-weirdo convert way. But back to what we're doing today. Today, you're going to hear from Hannah Feldman, the CEO and co-founder of a company called Kidadl, which helps families do fun and useful things with their kids. Hannah began her career as a corporate lawyer, then worked in banking, and then worked with James Kaan, whom the UK audience will know as one of the judges on Dragon's Den. For the Americans in the audience, that's the UK's version of Shark Tank. In this episode, you'll hear about Hannah's career pivot and her company's pivot. And I think this is really interesting because life and business aren't linear. And this brings me back to what we talked about last week. Remember Reid Hoffman's words that the business strategies employed by highly successful startups and the career strategies employed by highly successful individuals are strikingly similar. Whether you want to build a business or transition into a career in tech, this is a great episode to learn from. If you want to transition into a career in tech, I'm actually holding a free class on the topic today, so come along. I'll show you examples of 5 very different people who made career transitions into the tech sector from traditional industries, so you can learn from their examples and apply their lessons to your life. The link to today's class is in the show notes, and it is also available at techfornontechies.co/career-masterclass. That's techfornontechies.co/career-masterclass. And now, without further ado, let's learn from Hannah Feldman.
You're quite used to working with camera and being on camera and working with famous people, basically, because you worked with one of the UK's best-known entrepreneurs, James Kaan.
Yes.
So would you just be able to enlighten us what you were doing with Mr. Kaan?
Absolutely. So by the time I moved to work with James, I'd been working for a number of years in a front office role in banking, and I'd been banking a portfolio of high net worth and ultra high net worth clients across different industries, but a lot of tech and a lot of media and a lot of classic industries as well. And I got to know James through that journey, and he very much can spot somebody with an entrepreneurial spark a mile off, and said to me, why don't you come and basically be a bigger fish in a smaller pond and help me source and manage my deal flow? And I mean, I couldn't have asked him where the door was fast enough. And out I ran to go and join what was then called Hamilton Bradshaw, which was effectively his holding company, that got to see an amazing pipeline of deals across different sectors across the UK. And once I got there, I met a lot of people who were more active than I had been previously in the entrepreneurial world. And it really cemented my love of finding a solution to problems through technology, and also having the confidence to go out and build solutions that no one else but you would be able to build, because people were doing things all the time there at a rate of knots that they hadn't been so much in the law and banking career.
So what do you think it was that James saw in you? Because your career to date had been at Linklaters, at UBS, at these very large, very well-established companies, in a career that is very difficult to attain, but nevertheless it is a big brand corporate career. And then James sees you in this big brand corporate environment and says, there's something else I think you should be doing. So what do you think, what was that spark?
I think I've always felt a bit like a square peg in a round hole in 18 years in the corporate world, because I always felt like I didn't entirely fit the mold of what an organization exactly not wanted, but would serve an organization best at the given time. So when I was a junior lawyer, I always thought to myself, well, being a partner would be so much more interesting because you get to win the business and manage the clients. But there's a real hierarchy at place in those institutions, and you can't just go and win clients, 2 years qualified. It doesn't work like that. And the same in banking. I thought it was so interesting to meet these incredible people from around the world, but I wanted to get kind of more strategic with the role I had in their life rather than just being in one silo. So I suppose what James saw in me was what you'd see in many entrepreneurs, this kind of drive to make things happen of their own accord and at their own pace, which sometimes either outstrips the pace or the focus of life in the corporate world. And he operated a much less strict set of boundaries when it came to seeing what talent could and would do within the organization. And it was a kind of much more collaborative environment where if you took the initiative was there to be taken. And I think for me, it was one of the first times in my career where I could see a path to my own enterprise without the same structures as there were in the corporate world. And I think James could see that I would do well in that sort of jungle environment as an individual, just in terms of who I am, I suppose.
You had this interim phase between launching your own startup, and this is what we often see on Tech for Non-Techies, is that people work somewhere, usually quite large, quite established, because frankly, when you're coming out of university, you don't really know what you want, and you see big brands, and that's kind of what you're preparing for. And then there's usually some sort of intermediate stage, and then the launching of the company. And so is Kidadl your first company?
It is my first company, apart from the companies I formed pre and during school for Young Enterprise and various other initiatives. I used to sell potpourri on my doorstep, and I used to make, in the 1990s, very tight cropped T-shirts for teenage girls to buy, because that was a big trend at the time.
I remember I was doing something for Young Enterprise. I don't remember what it was. So what does Kidadl do? Please tell us about Kidadl.
So Kidadl is the digital home of family edutainment. So it's the place where parents come to find best-in-class resources to help them entertain and educate their kids. And we serve a global audience across the world, and we're growing rapidly, with our main focus market, apart from Europe, being America.
So what kind of entertainment is it? Is it things for people to watch? Because I've noticed that there's quite a wide array. So what are the options?
So we categorize all of our content into 5 main pillars, which include Days Out, which is true to the DNA of our business. We pivoted at the beginning of lockdown in 2020 to much more of a content-focused platform, but we'd always been known as a booking and ticketing app for family days out. So that's still one of our pillars. And then we have another pillar called At Home. And At Home is everything you'd want to do to effectively have fun, but learn while you're doing it at home. And that can be a scavenger hunt in the garden, all the way through to, fun exercises to do at home, all the way through to recipes, to ways to plan an indoor sleepover, to, every creative idea under the sun, how to make a doll's house from scratch, how to start your own newspaper, how to make a time capsule, across the whole range of ages and interests. And then we have an education section that's more specifically focused on ways to help educate your children depending on their age and stage across the curriculum and across topics. And we also cover best buys. So when you are a parent looking for the right things for every stage of your child's development, whether it's for gifts or whether it's for learning aids, we curate best-in-class products across different categories and enable you to purchase them.
The categories sound really fun. And when you're talking about some of those skills, I was thinking, I'd quite like to have an indoor sleepover and build a time capsule. That sounds great fun. So how does the business model work? Who pays to be on it? Is it both sides?
So we used to be a ticketing model where we would earn our commission or revenue through ticket sales. And now our business model is 6 revenue streams. The first, which are live, is more around programmatic advertising through articles and through video. So effectively, we provide all the content to the market for free, and that we serve ads on the content, which enables our team to be paid and our business to be monetized while the users access the content for free. There are plans for a subscription model in the future of Kidadl where you will be able to get an ad-free version which focuses on the learning outcomes for your kids, but that's for the next phase of our growth. And we have other revenue models around monetizing the sale of affiliate related products and our own e-commerce products through the platform, as well as content partnerships, which a lot of brands are demanding at the moment because of the scale of our platform and the reach we have across the world. But we have to make sure we can serve them when we have the right team in place to do so, which it will be in the coming months.
So speaking of scale, you've raised a few rounds of funding. I saw that there was an angel round, then there was a seed round. And where are you right now? Because you've gone beyond that.
Yeah, so now we're raising a later round, I suppose, to scale up. We have effectively what in startup terms is called product market fit. So we know how to super serve an engaged audience through the recipe or the formula we've created in our business. And we know the cost of scaling that formula and the various stakeholders and things that we need to invest in to get to the next phase of our growth, which in our case is becoming kind of the world's leading platform for family edutainment, and how we appraise that in terms of the number of page views that we're going to hit and the number of pieces of content for the family market that we're going to have live. So this is effectively our first scaling funding round where we know we have the foundation set, we have the model working, and now we need to pour fuel to launch the rocket, if that makes sense.
What an exciting time.
Yes. For every founder, I think this is the most exciting time where you kind of, for a number of years in our case, we've served this market. And we've served this market with exactly the same passion, exactly the same drive, exactly the same purpose behind what we do. But until we pivoted, I wouldn't say that we'd found the product market fit in the same scalable, repeatable, and game-changing way for us as founders and for the market. And when you find that, it's kind of like finding the person you're going to marry and people saying before, well, how do you know? and then you find one that is right and you realize, well, I didn't know before, but I do know now. And I think that's the same thing with product market fit. You know when it's happening, but when it's not, you're trying all of the things to make it happen. And the truth is it's putting a product in front of a market that they want to keep engaging with in whatever way makes it a business for you.
That's such a great analogy. So kind of when you're looking for product market fit, it's kind of like a series of bad dates. And the thing is, you don't know it's going to be a bad date before you turn up. So you still have to put on a nice outfit and look good and go across town to go to the date.
You have to do all of that. You have to go through the motions. You have to kind of base it on a set of assumptions, the kind of person, the kind of location, kind of, interest. But the truth is you have to just keep iterating till you find the fit. And I think what content has given us is the same audience, but a really strong fit in the way that the previous version of Kidadl was still on its way to that.
So would you be able to just talk us through the pivot a little bit? So there was the ticketing model, And then during COVID, you changed. Would you be able to tell us a bit more?
Yes, so we used to be an iOS and an Android app that was a place where you'd come to discover, book and pay for the best things to do with your kids. And we curated our content to your budget and the ages and interests of your kids and your location. And of course, the time and date you wanted to do something. And we would effectively be your pocket companion for the family fun element of your life. Apart from when COVID hit, there was no fun to be had outside of the home within reason as a family or even as a singleton. There was nowhere to go and nothing to book. So we were in Silicon Valley. We'd won a prize, UK-wide prize for female founders. And the prize was a ticket for a weekend with amongst the top investors in the world and other female founders in the Valley. And we heard about this thing called COVID while we were there. And we started to realize that if it was going to be as bad in Europe as it was appearing in China, there would be a very big change to the way people went out and did things together as a whole. And I remember coming back and just saying to my team, the most important thing that we do now is we fight to stay super relevant and useful to our audience, because if we don't, we'll just simply die a death because nobody's going to be looking for us or using us for the next however many months. And we moved the focus from the content we were writing, which was all about the days out content. And we'd started going across the UK for amazing things you could do. And we moved it to effectively the opposite, which was everything you could do at home within a particular genre or of a particular interest type. And we never stopped. We have never stopped. And we didn't initially think about monetization or a scalable model. We just thought about relevance. And then we started to see within 3 to 4 months that people were coming in their droves and that we were going up by the tens and then the hundreds of percent in terms of traffic to the site, that we had put the apps to sleep temporarily and just focused on our mobile website, and things were really, really happening underfoot. And as we saw it, we iterated more, like we talked about earlier, in terms of finding the fit with the content we served, the velocity of serving it, the age ranges we covered, the geographies we covered, the style we wrote in, who we worked with to write, as well as to brief and write and upload and plan the content. And we've now gone in less than a year to over 1 million monthly page views from effectively less than 3,000. Wow. And we're on track to deliver 30 million over the next 12 months after the close of this round. So it's been night and day in terms of the journey.
So without COVID, we might assume that it would have maybe taken you longer to get there.
I think the trouble is, as a startup, you're often pigeonholed into being a certain genre. So are you a marketplace? Are you a content play? Are you a SaaS business? And the truth is, that doesn't always mean you're serving your audience in the way they need to be served. So we very much always had a content element. We always had a booking element. We still have a content element and a booking element because we still have days out. But what we've learned is that we are serving what our audience are looking for. And beforehand, we might have been slightly adjacent to that. And I think we were nervous about trying to be too much too soon because there's only so much money and so much time. But the truth is, to super serve any audience, it's the nuances that really can make or break whether you're successful. And I think with hindsight, content was always going to become bigger and bigger and bigger for us. But this exacerbated the pace of the change and meant that we could be much more light-footed because we didn't have to worry about trying to prove out the business case for the other model first.
Your background is corporate and business and money. And would you be able to tell us about your co-founder?
Yes, so Sophie is very much the yin to my yang. Her background is that she's now what you would call a serial founder, and that she grew and scaled a business concurrently and has since exited since we met a few years back. And that was in the global B2B content space, but in the conferencing world. And she grew a business from 0 to 190 staff, serving conference days and themes across the world, and is very much somebody that has a background in analytics and market analysis, I'd say. She was a commodity trader. So she's always looking at where there's a market demand that needs to be served. And that comes from her training in banking after she did a geography degree back in the day. So she moved from being an analyst and a trader into the world of entrepreneurship in her mid to late 20s, has grown this team, or had grown a team, to over 190 people across the world, and then exited it just over a year ago. So she's had that scale up exit journey. She's a massive problem solver, and she manages the technology and the product and a lot of the technical side of the SEO that underlies our business, and obviously the overarching management of kind of custodians, so whether there be different agencies or different members of the team on the technical side. So ironically, the main non-techie is Sophie, but I'm very much the yin to her yang. So I manage much more of the brand, of the face of the business, the legals. I was a lawyer for many years, the content, which obviously is the growth machine behind our business, and all of the engagement with our market, if that makes sense.
So how did you two meet?
So we met through my cousin who had, in her late 40s, early 50s, decided to marry her long-term partner, and decided one Sunday evening to have a hen party. And she knew that I was selling companies, and she knew that Sophie had this very large company that perhaps would one day she'd want to dispose of. So she put us next to each other at the table plan, knowing that I'd always like to end the evening on a good deal. And I sat down and kind of did my usual pitch after a few glasses of wine. And Sophie said to me at the time, this was a few years back, "Oh, that's not for sale. I'm not interested in selling that, but I've got an idea." And then she got out of her phone like a prototype of like 3 or 4 screens. Mm-hmm. And I had 2-year-old twins at the time. And she showed me this prototype and she said, "I want to build a better way for parents to access technology, because I think I've got all the tools in my day job as an entrepreneur through technology, but none of the tools I need as a parent." And as I was looking at these, I didn't even know what a prototype was at the time, right? I was in corporate finance. I'm looking at this and I said, if this product existed, this would change my life. And I was blown away by it, really, because it was just quite impactful, understanding how simple. Now we all know how hard it is to get something so simple. But at the time I thought, wow, this would be life-changing. And I went back to work on the Monday, and then I got a message Tuesday or Wednesday that week saying, well, if you love it so much as an idea, why don't you come and build it with me? And as they say, the rest is history. Of course, there were weeks of me thinking, is this the right time to go and build a startup? What gives me the qualifications to go and build a tech business? How do I know that, this is the right co-founder? I've only met her a couple of weeks ago. People say you should know someone for years. All of these questions. But, if you just looked at the facts of that conversation, you'd think that was a bit hasty. But if you knew that for the previous 5 years, I'd met maybe 15 people with a view to building a company, my radar were up looking for ideas. I met loads of people at James's. I was consciously trying to bring that energy into my life. And it was just a question of not if, but when. It makes more sense, because until I met Sophie, I never found somebody with such different skills and a problem that I would also want to spend my life solving. So that's why I jumped in 2 feet first after only a number of weeks to do it with her.
Wasn't that interesting? This episode makes me think of the phrase that luck is when opportunity meets preparation. If you want to be ready for opportunities when they arise, just like Hannah was, then you're in the right place. You can join today's masterclass to begin mapping your career journey into tech. The link is in the show notes, as I mentioned, and it is also at techfornontechies.co/career-masterclass. And if you're loving what you're learning, because who wouldn't, come and join us as a member at Tech for Non-Techies. Our membership is your guide in the jargon-filled world of tech. Every week, we have live sessions and masterclasses with interesting people like Hannah. You'll also get coaching sessions with me and learning notes on key aspects of tech like AI, product management, and the app economy, all made for smart non-techies. Our members are awesome. They include alumni of Harvard, Oxford, and the University of Chicago, people who are buying companies, building businesses, and leading innovation. And this is pretty epic. And honestly, I'm a proud mama. So if you want to join us, then check us out on techfornontechies.co/membership. That's it for now, my dear smart people. Have a fabulous day, and I'll speak to you next week. Ciao.